Sometimes men take matters into their own hands.
Greetings, residents of the Incorporated Village of Hempstead. As some of you are aware, that recently it has been brought to my attention, to my office, about some insensitive posts that was on Facebook by a couple of our members of the fire department. And so we're here today to address the concerns of our community. First of all, let me start by saying that we appreciate the work that the men and women of the Hempstead Fire Department do every day, volunteering their service. I am also a member of the Hempstead Volunteer Fire Department. So I want to make that clear that we are respectful and we are grateful for the work that our volunteers do every day. But the issue is now not the men and women of the Hempstead Fire Department, but the Hempstead Fire Department has a governing body, which is the Fire Council. When I was made aware of these insensitive posts, I immediately contacted the mayor, Mayor Don Ryan of the Village of Hempstead, and also the chiefs of the Hempstead Fire Department. And so once they were contacted and I gave them the information, the mayor, with his authority, suspended one of the firefighters who is also an employee of the Village of Hempstead. The chiefs of the fire department recommended the suspension of this member also, but it has to go before the fire council to determine whether they support it or they overturn the suspension. My issue is that when we have a governing body of the Hempstead Fire Department, which is the council, and our community members, our residents, our taxpayers, when they come before our council asking for a response to this insensitive post and just to be heard, and when we have a governing body that refuses to even allow our residents, our taxpayers, to speak before this body, many of the members said that they would leave before they allowed the residents to come in. And so as an elected official by the people of the Village of Hempstead, as your trustee, that does not sit well with me when we have a governing body of a fire department that is in place, again, for the safety and protection of the residents of the Village of Hempstead. They should also be open to hear the questions and concerns of the residents of the Village of Hempstead. This is not my first time in office. I brought this to the attention of prior administration when I was first elected, the issue that we have concerning the Fire Council, where it seems like there is an unequal dealing of justice when it comes to the members of the fire department. And this is factual, where many people, African Americans and minorities, have been suspended and kicked out of the department. Other people have done the same infractions and was able to stay in the department. So today I'm requesting that the mayor and the trustees of the Incorporated Village of Hempstead hold a public hearing so that we can, according to village law, appoint a fire commission. The fire commission will be composed of residents that live in the Village of Hempstead. Right now, the governing body of the fire department, the fire council, many of the members don't even live in the Village of Hempstead. So again, in order that we have the fair representation that we should here in the Village of Hempstead, it is my recommendation that we hold a public hearing according to municipal village law and appoint fire commissioners. The trustees have the authority to call or make a resolution for a public hearing for a fire commission, but it's the mayor's authority to appoint the members. So again, my cry today is for the mayor and the trustees, those of us who have been elected by the residents of the village of Hempstead to do the right thing for the people that put us in office, and let's make sure that we have a governing body in our fire department that will be fair and equal. Thank you. At this time, we have with us, of course, Mayor Don Ryan. We have our senator, and so we're going to, and we have clergy here. I'm going to have Mayor Ryan come. He'll have words, and the rest of our trustees, and then he'll call on our senator and our trustees and clergy to have remarks.
I thank you, Trustee. Good afternoon, Hempstead. I will admit, as a general rule, I would prefer an elected position over an appointed position. Now, there are some things we can do, perhaps, to improve the Fire Council's representation of the Village of Hempstead. I would, for example, suggest that the bylaws be changed, where residents of the Village of Hempstead given priority to be wardens. We have 10 companies in the Village of Hempstead. Each of the 10 companies vote for 2 wardens. That's 20 people. The 4 chiefs make up the 24-member council. So I'm suggesting that the Fire Council give priority to Village of Hempstead residents. Now, you might say, well, why don't you just say they have to be Village of Hempstead residents? That's a statement I would love to be able to make, and I think shortly that might be possible. But right now, we do have a couple of companies that are very short in the number of people that they have as members. And after they appoint their captain and the lieutenant, it might be difficult for them to fill these positions in that manner. But whenever it's possible, that would be the priority I'd want. I should footnote, there is a junior fire department, and certainly Trustee Hobbs is going to be in the forefront of this. Right now, because of the pandemic, they're not able to get this thing functioning, but eventually that'll help. I was just talking to Trustee Hobbs today, that we not only talk to people at Hempstead High School, but at Uniondale High School, because it's the east end of the village that most needs volunteer fire people. Not that we don't need them throughout the village. And I would call on any and all of you to consider joining. The other thing I would mention is I would like to see us waive the fee for the background check. I think it's about $150, which is a heavy amount of money to ask somebody to give and then volunteer their time. So if the background check can be picked up by the village, perhaps the number of individuals who will wish to join the fire department will increase. Now, I want to make it clear that the mayor and the board of trustees, when they attend any meeting of the fire council, be allowed not only to attend the meeting, but if they go into any executive session, be a resource person there as well. Also, I believe the open mic at a meeting of this nature would be appropriate. You might recall there was a time the only people who could speak at an open mic in the Village of Hempstead was a Village of Hempstead resident. As the trustees behind me have done, we go to the meetings in New York State. The New York State Conference of Mayors made it clear when I asked the question that if one person speaks at an open mic, everyone is entitled to speak, whether they're a village trustee or a stakeholder or simply somebody who has a concern they want addressed. Perhaps the fire council, if we so insist, can follow that so the individuals in the community would have a chance to have their concerns heard. Now, when disciplinary action is taken, there's 2 ways. It was pointed out correctly that the last individual who was suspended was a village employee and a member of the fire department. So there are 2 governing bodies. The decision made for the suspension period was mine. The trustees are off the hook. I'm the one. The suspension was based on the fact that he had an open jacket, and the fact of the matter that what he did was bad, distasteful, unacceptable. But I didn't think it raised to the level of termination. Wow is wow. Many of you, I'm sure, have had a chance in your life to have a second chance. I don't think anything is wrong with a second chance. And an opportunity for this person to do that is something that I judged in my decision. Obviously, he'll be followed closely, and we'll have to make sure that he makes the use of being a better person after this. Thank you. Now, any type of disciplinary action is entitled to representation and is entitled to an appeal process. A person, for example, that was suspended, I don't know what he'll do, but he was represented by the union. As a union representative, often they'll appeal. It goes before an arbiter. And that individual will make the decision as to whether the penalty stands or does not, and what replaces it, if anything. I believe this penalty will stand. So that is some of the things that go on, and I just don't want you to think that these decisions are not made with great consideration. They are. Now, certainly Chief Kyle Bowles, our First Assistant Chief Chad Mott, Second Assistant Chief Fred Sanders, Third Assistant Chief Jimmy Joyce, and the entire men and women of the Volunteer Fire Department in Hempstead to be congratulated. They serve without pay. They respond to calls day and night throughout this community. They are involved in saving lives and protecting property, and they're to be applauded. An invitation is hereby extended. If anybody would like to join, there are openings, and it can be done so. So I appreciate that. Now I want to yield the mic to the trustees, Trustee Lamont Johnson, Trustee Jeffrey Daniels. Trustee Daniels.
Good afternoon. The Village of Hempstead Volunteer Fire Department is 188 years old, and its members serve with distinction and with honor. Annually, the men and women of the Village of Hempstead Fire Department respond to thousands of calls for medical assistance, to extraction from motor vehicle accidents, and of course, providing fire protection services, running into burning buildings, and pulling out not only Village of Hempstead residents, but also residents of neighboring communities. The Village of Hempstead residents, the Board of Trustees, the clergy, and the organizations, the civic organizations, many of which are here today, respect, appreciate, and honor the men and women of the Village of Hempstead's Volunteer Fire Department. Our fire department provides a very critical service to the Village of Hempstead, to our residents, and safeguarding the institution of the fire department is paramount. Even if we have to save that institution ourselves. The resolution that's being put forth by Trustee Hobbs increases the level of transparency into the fire department, and it begins to repair the community's trust of that institution so that the exemplary service that the volunteer fire department has performed over the years can continue into the centuries that come. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee. Senator Thomas has blessed us with his presence. Let me call him to the mic, please. Thank you.
This community, my community, with the trustees, Hobbs, Daniels, and Lamont, in condemning these racist remarks by a village employee. Now, we are here to look for change. Change in the way employees are looked at when there is a misconduct. So far, when such allegations were brought up to this fire council, they did not take the appropriate action. That's why we are here. So when Trustee Hobbs introduced this resolution to change the way things are done, I support him. I support his efforts. You know, these protests that we've been seeing around the country is not an anomaly. We are living in the second civil rights movement. And to have such behavior and not have a structure in place to reprimand individuals and to change the way things are done is not going to make things better for anyone. So I'm here to support the community, to support the trustees, because Hempstead deserves better, and the best is yet to come. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And representing the faith community, Bishop Elliott, would you please join me at the mic?
To the mayor, to the media, trustees, beloved community. I am Bishop Philip E. Elliott, pastor of Antioch Church in Hempstead. I also serve on the Race Crime Task Force for Nassau County, and I'm also a 45-year tenured pastor. Having grown up in the state of Virginia, I'm familiar with the signs and symbols like the fire hoses. Not just the signs, but the actuality of having fire hoses put upon us. Now, in a period in which we have race tensions going on, this is an issue that's not just a black and white issue, it's a systemic issue. And any system that does not have checks and balances is headed towards some kind of tyranny. And for many of you here, this may not be a tyranny act, but for those of us who understand what it means, it is emotionally and psychologically tyrannous. And so we support the checks and balances that Bishop Hobbs and the trustees have advanced because it is important that we send some strong messages from one of the largest villages in the United States of America, that Hempstead is taking a stand against injustice. This is very important to us. And finally, I want to say this, is that not so long ago, a few months ago, we witnessed the police chief of the village of Hempstead being handcuffed and paraded in front of the media and the community for a traffic ticket. And there was no advocacy for leniency. But today we have an individual who paraded and charaded the police, the hoses of black people who were protesting, standing up for their rights. And that sign and symbol was posted so that it went abroad, broadcasted throughout the entire territory and environment and region. And to have any sense of an advocacy for leniency there, I think is not proper. And I think that we should take a strong stand here and send it across our beloved community that Hempstead is standing for justice and standing against injustice. Thank you.
I thank you. Other questions? Sure. Let me give this over to the gentleman who will call this conference together.
Thank you, Mayor. Just before we take questions, again, I want to emphasize that we appreciate the work that the volunteers, men and women of the Hempstead Fire Department do. I've been in the fire department. I started when I graduated high school in 1980. And when I joined the fire department in 1980, not 1960, but 1980, I was the first African American on that department. I was called the N-word over the radio, not in the 60s, but in the 80s. I did not call a press conference. I did not bring a lawsuit, because those days we did things differently. It was the support of the other firefighters that had my back that made me feel comfortable in that environment to stay in the fire department. But now we're in 2020, and we have to deal with the same thing. It will not be tolerated. As I said before, I brought the issue of this fire council to the previous administration, but now I refuse to stand quiet. If I have to stand by myself, I'm going to stand for the residents of the village of Hempstead. Any questions?
Mr. Griffin?
I'm George Civerone. I'm the Executive Director of the Hempstead Hispanic Church. Trustee Hobbs has just put a proposal about the creation of the commission. That has to go up before the mayor, and I think the question is to the mayor. Will you support the creation of that commission?
Now, obviously, what is right is not always popular. And what is popular is not always right. Now, we've been in existence for over 180 years. We have some good people on the commission. However, on the council, I should say. However, with the one area which I think will answer the sensitivity issue that's addressed here today is insisting that Hempstead residents get priority to sit on that council. That will bring in the individuals, I think, who live here and probably, it'd be fair to say, fight the fires. Many of the people who are on the commission are longtime firemen. Many of them have moved out of town, and that's reflected in the comments I've heard, and that would be correct. But throwing the baby out with the dirty water isn't necessarily the answer. Insisting that Hempstead residents get priority to sit on the council, I think would bring together the type of meaningful answer that we want. And the idea that the trustees should take on this additional assignment goes to the issue that I feel strongly about, that I'd rather see an elected official than an appointed official. That's where the real opportunity to get the input is. He's going to save your life if he can. I will tell you, I had an opportunity to read the entire posting and additional posting and comments. I've had a chance to interview him as well. I talked to the union representative, and I looked through the records to see what we had as precedents. Feel the decision, which was mine, the other trustees can speak for how they would have voted, is mine. I think it is fair. A lot of people complained. Some of them are individuals who, along in their life, as all of us usually, get a second opportunity. He will do fine if given support. This is not something, this is not something which is going to be debated. It is already a decision that was made. He's serving that time, and he's taking the course.
No disrespect to you, but I just need to know out of your mouth, you okay with this remark?
Of course not.
You don't know what he's going to do. Like she said, you don't know.
Nor do you. But of course I'm not happy with the remarks. I said I was disappointed and that it is not acceptable. It is disappointed, not acceptable. Yes, Reverend Benjamin?
No. Mayor, they have questions. Excuse me.
The clergy?
No, I'm sorry. Mayor, I called the press conference.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes. Excuse me.
That's right. So you decide.
All right, let me say this first, because the mayor made the statement that, you shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But I want you to know something, too. With cancer, if you don't remove the cancer, it spreads. And so we have to make sure that we remove this cancerous mentality where we have a governing body that feel like they shouldn't answer to the people. As what do I feel should have happened with the firefighter? Number one, when I looked at the post itself, I have to say this. In his post, he said, showing filming of people, protesters being hosed down with fire cannons. And it really wasn't in the United States. I believe it might have been Brazil, but Venezuela. But the problem is it was being insensitive to the fact that although he said this is what should happen to rioters, he don't realize that here in the United States of America, the people that was out there was not rioting in the 60s, but they were protesting for their civil rights, and they was put hoses on and dogs on, and they was not rioting. So if anyone does not know how that's an insensitive statement, then that person has to be dealt with. The mayor made his decision based on his authority to make that decision. At this time, I will not and I cannot say what I will do because this individual is an employee, and if he decides to bring a suit, I can't make myself liable for anything that he might bring. For this press conference, and that is when you have a governing body that made the statement in the meeting that they did not see anything wrong with what this individual did. Not only did they say they didn't see anything wrong with what this individual did, they also recommended that a motion went on the floor to prevent the chiefs from even suspending this individual. So listen, we have a real problem, again, when we have a governing body of the fire department that thinks it's all right for for someone to make these statements, and they think it's all right for them not to include the community to even speak. So this is what I'm dealing with. The makeup of the council, so as the mayor said, the council is voted on by members of each department, but to be honest with you, the majority of that council are not African American or Latino. And many of them don't live in Hempstead. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.